Uncle Jake here with a very special episode of Blaster Throwback. And, of course, as always, I will mention that the series was inspired by Cameron's son's, also known as Walcom S7, his own series of Blaster Tagback. I'll admit it, I took his idea and put my own spin on it. And no shame in doing that. I'm just going to give credit where credit's due. He had a good idea, and I wanted to run with it. And I've had a few episodes out, but I wanted to take it all the way back to the original year that my favorite company, which everybody should know if you've been around this channel, is Busby, the very first year they came into existence. And then for those of you who are more Nerf fans and have not kept up with Busby, they came into existence fairly recently, in 2003. This is one of the very first blasters that they actually put out on the market. It was an inexpensive blaster, held 10 darts, is top prime, and it fired their own darts, and really only their own darts, because the diameter of the dart post is the problem. More on that later. But this has 10 shots, top prime, and I had been wanting to pick up this specific color scheme because, of course, Busby, black and yellow. I mean, that only makes sense. But this thing is so hard to find information on. You can search the Nerf wiki and find information on all kinds of rare blasters. However, this thing, even though they're out there and they're not ultra rare. I mean, the store I seen these in when I was thrifting, I found 2 of them. This one and a color scheme of also black and green. Didn't pick that one up because these things my thrifting situation here is terrible, and I paid $2.99 for this blaster here, which, I know, don't laugh, I wanted it. Simple as that. Because this is one of Busby's absolute very first blasters they put on the market. You can't even find the name of this thing anymore, but it's basically the predecessor to the Tech line. The Tech line came out later the same year, but basically this is the predecessor to the Tech 10, which again was a pistol that had a top prime and a rotating front cylinder that held 10 shots. Basically took this exact same principle and made it a little less, I don't mean to say this condescendingly, but less dollar store toyish and more of a genuine competitor to Nerf. Because this, while it's neat and I wanted it for what is going to be a little project I do probably all the way into the spring due to a number of reasons, I'm going to actually build a whole new wall, a couple of them actually, is what it's going to be here, to showcase Busby in a full collection all the way from 2003 up to the current day. I make no attempt to hide my love of the company. They are a great company. They have made great blasters, and they went a long ways from this neat little blaster that has very subpar performance, feels very lightly made, and doesn't have the crispest, most crisp movement, and not necessarily the most fine detail. They went a long way from this. And while I'm not making fun of this blaster, this is their starting point. And this thing showed just a tiny fraction of what could be. Because when they introduced this, what it was a very, very inexpensive blaster that held more shots than what Nerf pistols did. And that was their starting point. A lot lower price, a lot higher capacity. Now, it had to use their own darts. Of course, that's the yellow darts with the purple tips, which that's these right here. You had to use those, but if you did, it fired those decently. Nerf Streamlines, old Nerf Whistlers and all that, they don't fit on there very well, unless you leave them on there overnight, or in this case, for a couple weeks. I did that with a few of them, and you can actually get them to fire and do decently, but you gotta allow the foam to stretch out. Or if you actually wanted to rebarrel 10 of them with brass and then upgrade the spring, upgrade the seal, I'm not gonna do that. Let's not kid ourselves. I'm not gonna put hours and hours of work into this blaster when I literally bought it to put on a wall as the very oldest blaster I have from the company. I do have a 2004 double shot, but now this exceeds it. This is a 2003 Busby 10-shot pistol. And even knowing Busby as well as I do, I still do not know what the original name this was released under was, because there's so little information for it. But this makes this blaster throwback episode because it's the oldest Busby blaster that I have now in my collection. And you'll see them from time to time. And if you are a Busby fan, you're probably going to see them. Do pick one up, if just for a keepsake, as unofficially the oldest Busby blaster on the market. And like I said, it wasn't the only blaster they released in 2003. It just happened to be an early 2003 release. And the other ones were late releases, which Busby still does that. They'll have early year and middle to later year releases. Like, for instance, the Revolution pistol, which, come to find out, I might actually get my hands on one. I thought that was going to be a unicorn that I never got to catch, because for me, it wasn't available anywhere in my area. Even my Busby rep said I couldn't get my hands on one. Even through them, she couldn't find one anywhere in their offices. She couldn't refer me to anybody where I could get one. And I'm not going to give away details just yet, but I might actually be able to get my hands on one of those for testing and review. And that's a late year release, because they just released over the last month or so in certain areas of the country. And that's something Busby's really consistent with, their inconsistency of releases. Not taking a dig at them, it's just something that they do. They'll have regional releases, they'll have different time releases at different retailers. And that's what this was. This was one of the very first blasters they released early in 2003, and then they kind of hit the rest of their releases towards the end of the year. But that's why this thing actually holds a special place in history for those of us who are Busby fans. It is quite possibly the oldest blaster on the market from the company. I'm actually going to try to get in touch with my rep to see if there's any information I could find on this blaster, but as far as I know, it's the oldest one, or one of the oldest that they ever made. And while they're not great compared to what Busby themselves produces nowadays, like the Zenith is amazing as a pistol, as a front-loaded cylinder type pistol. It fires in the middle 80s with the pump action. It's smooth. It works amazingly well. Has even better quality than some of Nerf's own offerings at a lower price. Still, that just goes to show where they've came from. And that's why, for me at least, while you have some people who love to find the old Nerf stuff, this for me is special. It's a 2003 Busby pistol in, well, B colors. So, I don't know, that's silly and goofy, but I'm nothing if not at least upfront and honest. And that's the only reason I wanted it. And that's the only reason I wanted to showcase it was it's a special place for somebody who has a affinity for the company. And that's what this is all about. I hope you enjoyed watching this. It's a different blaster throwback episode. I'm not focusing on the performance or function of the blaster. It's more of just a rambling talk about Busby and their history and what this represents as their starting point as a company and what we've seen and how far they've come. So it's a little bit about the pistol, a little bit about the company, a little bit about my enjoyment of their products and my liking of how they run things and do things for the hobby. Because if you don't know, Busby probably does more for the hobby overall than any other company or every other company combined. And that's part of why I'm so firmly behind them as a company. Because take a moment, in the closing of this video, take a moment to, if you want to check out what they do, look at all the giveaways they do, check all the little groups that they support across the country, the things that aren't ever going to get them headline attention, the things that aren't the world record-breaking events. A little group here, a little group there, a little group over there, whether it be in North Carolina, whether it be in Virginia, whether it be in Minnesota, whether it be in California, they donate blasters to people who, it's not going to get them any kind of praise. But they do it because they want to do it. They do it because they want to see kids get their hands on blasters. They do it because they want to see adults and families having fun, and they're more than willing to share their blasters with everybody. And just go look at their Facebook page. They host no fewer than anywhere from 3 to 5 giveaways per week. What's Nerf do? They released the Ultra One. And I'll end on that. Smungus Jake saying, I hope you enjoyed this very long, rambling episode of Blaster Throwback, featuring one of Busby's absolute first blasters they ever made available to the North American market, and my talk and chat about the company itself. Again, Smungus Jake, hope you enjoyed this.